Welcome back, everyone. In this lesson, we're going to say goodbye to the Rails landing page and start laying the foundation for our app. We'll start by adding in a static homepage. To do this, we're going to be touching controllers, routing, and views. Let's start by setting up our route. Remember, the idea is so that when someone goes to /home, they get a successful response and content on the page. So let's head back into the code and start with our routes. So we're going to go into our config and scroll down to our routes file. Now you can see there are a bunch of comments in this file. I'm going to go ahead and delete them all, but you can keep them if you think the information is helpful. Now I'm going to keep this one here because we're going to return to this momentarily. And this route right here is basically a health check. If the app boots with no exceptions, this route will return a 200. Otherwise, it'll return a 500. I'm going to go ahead and delete this because we won't need it in our application. Now to set up our home route, we can start with a simple GET request. So we'll do GET, and then we're going to pass it a string of /home. And then we need to send this to a controller and an action. Let's send this to the pages controller and the home action. Now we haven't created this yet, but let's still check it out in the browser and see what happens. So I'm going to save this and go into the browser. So if we do /home, we get a routing error. It says uninitialized constant pages controller. This was expected because we hadn't created this. Let's head back into our code and create this controller now. So opening our code and scrolling up to app, going down to controllers. Let's create a new file and call this pages_controller.rb. Notice we're using the plural of page. In Rails, controllers are plural and models are singular. Now let's go ahead and close this and we can define our class. So we can start with class and then we'll call this pages controller, and this will inherit from application controller. And if we quickly open up application controller, which is right here, we see that application controller is inheriting from action controller base. And this is coming from Rails itself. Action controller base allows us to handle requests and responses. It renders templates. It allows us to implement controller filters and callbacks like before actions. It handles sessions and cookie management and a ton more. And we'll be touching on all of it at one point or another. Now let's head back into our pages controller. And now we just need to define our action. So def, home, and close that out. With this, let's go back into the browser and see what happens now. So go ahead and refresh the page. Okay, and now we get a no view template for interactive request. It says pages controller home is missing a template for request formats text/HTML. So what this is telling us is we need to create a view template now. So back in our code, open this up and scroll down to views. Let's create a new directory and we'll call this pages. And then within pages, we can create a new file and we'll call this home.html.erb. And this directory has to be called pages. Our action in our controller is home. And so Rails is expecting a corresponding file named as such. This whole setup is a perfect example of Rails' convention over configuration approach. The naming of these files and directories is very important. And if you do things the Rails way, it's just going to work. Okay, so inside of this file, let's do a quick h1 tag. And we can add hello world. Okay, let's save that and head back into the browser now. So refreshing the page. Okay, great, we see our page. Now we want our home template to be our root page. Right now, if we were to get rid of this home and go back to the root page, we see the Rails landing page again. We can fix this easily by going back into our routes file. So let's go back to the code and head over to routes. Now down here at the bottom, we can uncomment this line, and I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this comment. And all we have to do is update posts to be pages and index to be home. Now let's save that and go back into the browser and reload the page. And great, now we're seeing our home template as our root path. Perfect. Okay, now let's add in another page and we'll call this the about page. Let's start by heading into the routes file and adding another GET request to /about. So right under our home, we can add another GET request, and this will go to /about, and this will be 2. We'll send this to the pages controller again, and then go to the about action. We can save that and go back into our pages controller. And then just like the home, we can do def about, save that. And then finally, we need to go back into our views directory and create a new file and call this one about.html.erb. And then we can add in an h1 tag and add in about. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. Go back into the browser and we'll do /about. Okay, great. We see our about page. All right. In the next lesson, we'll add in a Bootstrap navbar component, so we don't have to keep manually adding in the path and the address bar. We'll also add more HTML structure to the page to get ready for authentication pages in the next section. Great work on this one, everyone. I'll see you in the next lesson.